together engage in homosexual
In what
activity?
circumstances? When they don't have
sheep are
access.
together.
No, when they don't have access to the. When they don't have access to the opposite sex. So, for example, in primates, you see this in primates. Let's take chimpanzees, for example. You have an alpha male. He will dominate all the women, all of the females of that species in that group. He is the only one that can have intercourse with them. No one else is allowed. Some of the lesser males will have intercourse, surreptitiously hiding. The others engage in homosexual behaviour. So it's an aberration based upon the social structure in that group. I'll give another example.
But I mean, it happens it occurs in human beings as well, and you don't have the same social
I'll give
pressure.
another example.
It occurs in the same incidents, in fact, in human beings. But for your...
Come to humans in a second.
Sure, I just want to...
It must be natural and normal to them.
Well, if what's natural is what's moral.
I would appreciate it if I wasn't...
Spiders,
Okay, all right, no problem. I won't put it on.
Or my voice.
Why is that?
I don't think I need to have a conversation and know that it will go on the internet.
What it is that with people like yourself, like a proper intellectual argument rather than just going to a wild rant, it's nice to have those things on the internet purely because it shows that there are Muslims and there are non-Muslims that can actually have a decent conversation, have a disagreement, but they can still shake hands. And, you see what I mean?
And we will.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'll shake your hand as well. So it's just for that reason.
You can understand. I mean, I didn't come here so that I could have an argument.
No, I understand.
Otherwise, I would have prepared.
Fine. Oh dear. All right. Okay. Well, no, I won't film you anymore. I'll just film the broadcast.
Then we must consider it natural behaviour for human beings.
We'll come to natural behaviour in a moment.
Well, it must be because it happens all the time.
We'll come to it.
Yeah, I'm not saying it's moral, but...
Yeah, no, I was just talking to them.
So another example is rats.
Okay.
So rats show some degree of same-sex interface, so they show this, but only in one specific circumstance: overcrowding.
Okay.
If you overcrowd rats, they will show this behaviour.
So you're saying you don't see that in circumstances where there is no
Or
overcrowding?
no overcrowding. In chimpanzees, if you give them access to females, you don't see this either. It's specifically because of the social construct within that species.
So you're saying that... So why does it happen for human beings?
Because I think it's environmental, epigenetics. I don't know if you understand.
I don't understand epigenetics,
So
but I understand environmental.
Okay, let me put something else on its head. If you hold the concept that this is a genetic thing, and so there's a prevalent within society. If you just think about how genetics works, we were talking about earlier on.
Yeah.
If you have a set of genes which cause homosexual behaviour,
I'm not suggesting that.
I'm explaining the theory doesn't work. If you have a set of genes that causes homosexual behaviour, there would be no offspring from that individual because they're homosexual.
It depends. Well, okay, that individual.
Yes. So those genes wouldn't be passed on.
Okay.
Why would that not be the case for every homosexual individual?
Well, you're assuming firstly that this gene could only, or this mutation, if it is a genetic mutation, which by the way I don't think it is. We're kind of arguing a point that I don't agree. But there's no reason why this couldn't happen repeatedly. This couldn't be the same gene or the same mutation which occurs repeatedly. There's no reason why that couldn't happen. But I don't actually believe that.
We're essentially agreeing. So this is an environmental phenomenon, epigenetics. Okay.
Perhaps, yeah.
Yeah. So
It's irrelevant for me how it happens. The fact that it does happen, and that for a human being, they have no choice about their sexuality. Would you agree on that? If I asked you to be gay, I think you'd find that very difficult.
see, the thing is, in Islam, it's more subtle than that. We don't label people with their sexuality. Okay, because we're human beings. That's the label. Okay. Now, as an individual, you can have tendencies. You can find men attractive or you can find women attractive. You can have these tendencies. The only thing that's not sanctioned in Islam, in public, is the act of sodomy. That's
So,
literally what it
in
is.
private?
In private, you can do what you like.
Okay.
In private, if you're in an Islamic state, which doesn't exist at the moment, and you are smoking in your home, drinking in your home, having same-sex intercourse in your home, no one has the right to come into your home and apply some punishment to you. They don't have the right.
Well, it seems to me that in countries that are Muslim majority, there is a prohibition against homosexuality in some Muslim countries.
I agree.
And what is that mandated by? What's the reason for that?
There's lots of different reasons.
Because, I mean, you're saying that in the Quran there's no reason why these people couldn't behave how they wish to behave in the privacy of their own homes. And yet I can almost guarantee you that if this was happening in some Muslim majority countries and the authorities knew about it, they would prosecute it. So is that based on the Quran, or is that where are these morals coming from?
If I'm saying to you that Islam doesn't allow you to apply punishments to people doing acts within their own home in privacy, and then you're telling me that people are doing this,
Yeah.
then you should know that they're not compatible.
Okay.
So the people that are doing these things are doing them because Islam tells them to do it.
Yeah.
They're doing them because that's the problem within their state.
I think this goes back to the problem of, this is what we talked about earlier with the beating. I think there are verses that you can read out of context, and people do read these verses out of context, sometimes without really realising, but sometimes they know what they're doing. They're reading these verses deliberately out of context to support their prejudices and their views. And when that happens, you can say, well, this is wrong, read it, and you can say, well, no, that's not right, because a theologian, someone who's really studied the Quran, could go back and say, well, actually, there are...
But the explanation I gave to you, you understood it.
Yeah.
Was that reasonable?
No, actually, I don't think that's reasonable. No, I think if two gay men wanted to walk along the street holding hands... What are you talking
about the beating people?
No, I don't think inflicting any sort of physical pain on somebody as a punishment is the way to...
But is that what I told you that happens?
No, you said flicking me with a toothbrush or something like that.
Is that inflicting physical pain on someone?
That's not, I wouldn't like it. If you came and started flicking me with a toothbrush, I wouldn't appreciate that.
And that's the same as, you think that's not allowed?
No, I'm not saying that's a completely immoral action.
I would not appreciate that. That's the point. When in a marital discourse, you're expressing this thing. I do not appreciate what you're doing. This expression of doing that with the toothpick is clearly making that point. Because after that point, what's left? Because the admonition didn't work. The advice in the beginning didn't work.
Just leave her.
Separation? No.
Just don't flick her with a toothbrush.
Are you married?
No.
Wait to get married. So when you have a marital
I don't think I'll change my opinion. Can I?
When you have a marital discord, you want to save this marriage. You want to save this love that is between yourself. You want to save the family from all this problem, the children that's in the marriage. The divorce should be the very last option.
After you hit with a toothbrush.
Listen. You think divorce should be like left, right, and centre. Oh, I don't like your divorce.
No, I don't.
So do you agree divorce within marriage should be the very last option?
I think if you're very, very unhappy in your marriage, really unhappy, the person that you married is not the person you thought you married, then I don't see...
That's not the issue. The Quran doesn't stipulate that. The Quran is stipulating about a problem from a particular member of the spouse within this marriage who is creating problems in marital discord.
Can you notice, if I was let's say I was married, and I was having sex with lots of other women, and my wife was angry with me, what does the Quran tell my wife to do? Does she tell me to first ignore me and then shun me in the bedroom and then hit me with the toothbrush?
The Quran gives you a solution.
What's the solution?
Because when it comes to
Can you give me the surah where it gives me the solution?
Yeah, it tells you if it's the same, it uses the same word, nushuz, if she's from your husband, for example, she can separate. Exactly.
No,
that's it.
No, there's a difference. She can separate, fine. The man can also separate.
No, separate means what? Divorce. Why the whole process is not there? Because of how the Quran or Islamic society and structure looks at the position of man and woman within the structure, the roles they play. So
what roles do men and women play in this society?
We can't go into the whole of Islamic sociology and education system.
There is an imbalance here. I'm not asking you to. But you understand how, from an outsider's perspective, there appears to be some sort of imbalance, some sort of...
the roles are different in Islam.
When the husband and wife... It seems unfair and I know you said that this... Can you please give me the surah that I'm misquoting? Because apparently I am misquoting. Allow me to say that the testimony of a woman is worth half of her brother. Or that a woman in Sharia should receive half of what her brother receives. Am I misquoting? Am I misquoting? Because I'm happy to be wrong.
You're not misquoting. You're presenting something which people have misunderstood.
Okay.
Right? So let's clarify some of these issues. Fact one. Quran doesn't stipulate that man should get double down in terms of inheritance. This is total falsehood, total misunderstanding. What the Quran gives you the whole system of inheritance laws. Who's going to inherit from whom and how much. So it talks about between brothers and sisters, how much they should inherit. And we know the reason why. But before I go into the explanation of this, we need to understand that when it comes to inheritance, sometimes man inherit more than man, women inherit more than women. Sometimes women inherit more than man, sometimes women inherit the same as man. Sometimes they inherit less than man. So
I don't want to film him, he doesn't want to be
depends
filmed.
on
So.
who's inheriting. For example, again, this comes to the role of the Islamic the family structure. In this Islamic family structure, the responsibility to provide the financial, or relieve the financial burden and provide and look after and maintain the family is on the shoulders of a man. So it could be the husband, it could be the father, it could be the brother, it could be the son, right? The woman in the
not
family.
okay, go on.
For the sake of argument, you're saying you understood what I'm saying.
I understand what you're saying. I disagree with it, but I understand what you're saying.
Actually, let's make our understanding of Islamic family structure and see how much you can disagree justifiable, right? That's the point.
Yeah.
So in an Islamic family structure, the woman, whether she's the husband, wife, or a sister, or a mother, or a daughter, she doesn't have to work at all to provide for the livelihood of the family. She doesn't have to work at all. So it's not on her responsibility to provide the bread for the family. If she wants to, and she can do that in the environment that is, suitable for her, she can. And while she's earning, not a penny or a cent can be touched on by her husband or anyone else. That's her own money. Okay? So, besides that, so when it comes to a system where you don't have to do anything, you don't have to pay for anything, you don't have to earn anything, so you are in the receiving end.
That T-shirt looks like that's a picture of you, man.
Yeah. So you are in the receiving end.
Yeah, but that looks like you.
On the other hand, let's talk about a husband and a wife. Okay, it's a small family. Within this family, the husband has to provide for everything. Look after, maintain, take care of, all the financial responsibility. He has to work and make this family like a palace or whatever, beautiful garden you want to call it in the family. That's his job, that's his responsibility. Okay? In doing so, he needs the resources. One of the important resources is financial resource. To actually do that, to work, to pay for the bills and whatever you have, right? So he has to have the money. The woman, if you look at the wife, she doesn't need a single penny, does she?
What if they agree amongst themselves?
No, before we go into agree, we're talking about the Islamic structure rather than the Western, secular liberal structure that No.
That's probably unfair, but go on.
Not unfair. That's one of the models, isn't it?
Okay, that is a model, yeah, but
But when we compare the Islamic model, she doesn't have to do anything. She doesn't have to spend anything. So does she need any money? If she needs any money for her own needs, the husband can give her. So when it comes to inheritance, let's understand what inheritance is. Inheritance is such thing that you receive from your father or mother, whoever in your family, that you haven't done anything for it. You have worked nothing for it, isn't it? You received as a gift certain money from your family members. So this is a gift. You can do without it. Even there was no inheritance, you can't still complain. So why are there provisions of inheritance given in sort of inverted quotes, unequal measure at different circumstances? It's to do with who's receiving the inheritance and what will help them.
Okay,
so
I understand
a son or a brother compared to sister, look at it logically now. He's going to receive inheritance. So if he receives inheritance the same as the sister, brother and sister receive inheritance the same. With this money that he receives, the sister's going to keep the money. That's her own money.
But the brother has the responsibility to use it to build that.
The brother is going to spend this money
on
the family and his future bride, and when he's going to get married, he's going to give the dowry. Dowry is from the husband to the wife.
I understand your point.
But before you fast forward too quickly, if it was equal, this inheritance gift, it seems like it's not fair. It's not really fair, because fairness demands the one who has a higher financial burden to receive this free gift more than the other person who doesn't have to spend a single penny.
Well, let me ask you this then.
Do you agree or disagree?
Well, I can see your point. I don't agree with it.
Why don't you agree?
Well,
I'd like to know.
Firstly, there is some sort of idea here that there is some difference between men and women in terms of who should have the responsibility. I don't think that a man should have responsibility for his family any more or less than a woman should have responsibility for that family. That's just my opinion. That's
exactly your opinion. So in an Islamic model...
In the same way that this is your opinion.
Yeah, so in an Islamic model, why would you have a problem?
Let's imagine this circumstance.
No, but are they physically equal?
Can I ask you?
Wait,
let's have several discussions. Let's have one discussion.
Just allow me to ask this gentleman here. Imagine that between a man and a woman, they said, listen, sweetheart, let's just change all this. The woman is going to take responsibility for being the breadwinner, and the man, he's just going to live his life. You said that, there is no responsibility for a woman to do it, but let's say she wants to do it. Let's say she becomes the sole breadwinner. The man is unemployed. In that circumstance, she has the higher financial burden. Would she, under this law, then in that circumstance, inherit more money?
Islamic whole economic system has dealt with that already. The social system already.
What's the answer?
Before I answer this question, first of all, you're assuming, what if we have a system like that? In Islam, it's not like that. The system is not like this. The system is the inheritance come in a certain proportion to certain people. So you cannot just say, oh, let's change that and let's make a situation where it's like this. You can't do that.
Sorry, mate, can you not take photographs? I'd appreciate it.
Yeah? You can't change the system and say, let's experiment with the system like this. No. If you're a believer, look, when I accepted Islam, I surrendered my will willingly to God.
I accept that.
Why? Because I know God knows the most. He knows better than what I know. So when it comes to how to conduct my life, how to be in interactions with others and my other species, male or female, I surrendered to God, saying God knows most in terms of how the interaction should be, the best interaction.
I think that's the fundamental difference between
Exactly. So based on this, I accept the roles and responsibilities and the divisions and the differences of what's provided. When the system is all in place holistically, I know it works because it has worked. Okay? And I know it's just. Now, if you want to have an alternative model, you have to bring another model, holistic model which works. We will like to discuss on a model for model basis that takes into consideration every aspect of life holistically and says, let us see which is the best solution or model for humanity.
I think you
Small point. I just want to. But for the last, it's only the last 60 years that we start having like a woman also working. Before it was only the men who used to work, even in the Western society.
we can change the laws.
So that's what I'm saying. So are you better than your grandpa? You know better.
So, well, hang on a second. I'm not saying that I know better than my grandparents, but I disagree with the way they live their lives.
Let's return subject. As I said, are you familiar with this Islamic law? Islamic law which gives inheritance, that out of say about over 30 instances, only about 4 instances, the daughter or the sister gets less. All the others,
Say that again.
more than 30 or so instances of how she can receive inheritance as a woman. As a woman. Only about 4 instances she gets less.
But in every other instance,
And all the other instances she gets the same, or more, or she gets inheritance and the counterpart male doesn't get anything. Now, you tell me now, how do you evaluate this system in Islam, in the inheritance law of Islam? Does women get more or less, equal or the same? Tell me.
this is all unnecessary. What I say is, all you need is the same amount.
Do not try to impose a different model and say, let's explain according to that model. According to the model that we believe in and we live our life by as Muslims. All right? So, within this model, when it comes to inheritance, more than 30 situations, women receives inheritance. Out of them, only 4 examples, 4 instances, she receives less.
I understand your point.
So my question is, within this model, if someone asks you now, do women get less, more, same? How would you evaluate
It depends on the circumstances, is what you're saying. But I'm saying it shouldn't matter on the circumstances. Let's just make it completely
Now,
equal.
the whole accusation in Islam, women gets half of the inheritance.
I didn't make that accusation. If
Not
you
you,
listen
not
to
you.
what I said, I said,
I didn't say
what am I
you.
misquoting, and can you
I didn't
correct
say
me?
you.
Did I not say that?
If you go and search in the internet,
I know that
you will see this is the common misunderstood.
you're arguing against a position I'm not holding.
I'm saying this is one of the misunderstood things about Islamic inheritance. So now at least we realize this is totally baseless.
So this is complex. It's complicated.
And
It seems. It
it's
depends
more,
on.
So
on
within
the
this
circumstances.
complexity, do you agree? One of the elements that's there put in is justice and
I
fairness.
disagree that the complexity is needed. I'm saying eradicate the complexity. Let's just have it. Let's just have
Do man and wo-
me and my sister, regardless of the
It all comes
circumstances,
down to
inheriting the
then.
same amount of money.
Fine. With your permission, it all comes down to man and woman being equal. Equal in what?
What do you mean?
What is man and woman equal at or in? The equality that we now made a catchphrase. Yes, we want to be equal, but I want to know from you,
Well, financially, for a start.
what are man and woman equal in? Equal at?
What do you mean? What's a man and woman equal?
When we say
There is no evidence. I mean,
when we say we stipulate man and woman should be equal, right? What do you actually mean? Equality in the eyes of law? Same treatment in the eyes of law? What do you mean by this word equality?
I feel like it's necessary for a society to have equality between all members, regardless of their gender or their sexuality or anything like that.
May I
Equality.
give you an
occurs.
example? if you go to
obviously my friend here.
if you ride a bus or a train, equality means you and I and all the ladies there, they have the same equal right to sit on the train, right? You don't get pregnant, but the women do. But it doesn't change your status being equal to you or you being equal to her. So now, who has the equal? Who should? In fact, who has? Wait, please. Who has the right to sit? Is someone who is in a very
the person who needs it most.
No, equality we're talking about.
Yes,
in the eyes of equality,
the person who needs it most.
So you're not talking about equality. So now you're leaving aside.
If I was a young lady sitting on the train and an old man walks on, I would say, please have my seat. So if I was a young man, which I am, and a pregnant woman came on the train, I'd say, please have my seat.
So you left.
It's the person.
So you
it's
left.
Not to do with gender.
So you
it's
left.
To do with equality. It's to do with what's necessary.
It's to do with what?
It's to do with what's necessary.
Yes. It's to do with what? Who needs most? Yeah. Not equality. Equality demands that if you sit on there and she stands there being pregnant, she can't say a word. You know why?
No.
Because you. Excuse me.
That's wrong.
Why?
That's exactly
no.
the point.
If you have the equal rights to sit on the train, the lady is pregnant and you sit on it, and you don't care. I'm sitting on it. Now,
that would be selfish.
Then you can use your consent.
No, we're talking about equality, not common sense. Because in Islam, we have equality, common sense, fairness, and justice. In the secular West, they also have that, but let's discuss that, whether you actually have that in practice. So, in terms of equality then, if you sit on that seat, and a pregnant woman stands, can anyone say anything in terms of equality?
In terms of equality? Yeah. Well, whether it's a man or a woman, as I give you the example, an elderly man and a...
That's a fairness. That's
in terms of
equality.
Using the term
not
and
the fairness
principle of equality.
Yeah.
Can anyone say anything to you?
But it makes, what I'm saying to you is it makes no active difference whether or not it is a man or a woman.
No, I don't know.
Human beings are equal, but there is unequal distribution of necessity.
Spot on.
It's irrelevant.
Spot on.
It's irrelevant of whether it's a man or a
spot
woman.
on. You agree with me then? There's unequal distribution of equality.
No, of necessity. I said not equality. There is an unequal distribution.
Yeah, that means no equality then.
I'm a pregnant woman. I need to sit down because I have a baby.
So there is
I'm
no
an elderly
equality.
man,
And that's conducive to need, right?
So equality can be wavered because of necessity.
So what the brother was explaining to
What we
you
say is because of fairness, justice, and
that the responsibility on the man that he has to provide, he can't be a bum. Hold on a second. And the fact that she doesn't have to work if she doesn't want to means that the needs are different. Therefore, by your own admission, it needs both to be treated differently.
So the greater, on the society.
In reality,
There's a problem of imposition.
What if there's a woman and a man next to her with a broken leg and
his needs greater.
his needs are greater, aren't they?
It's not equality.
So it's not about gender.
It's not
It's
equality
about need.
and gender. It's about the fairness and justice.
It's about need. So it's not about woman or man. What it is, what Allah does is Allah recognizes, the Prophet peace be upon him recognized in the 7th century. Allah said this in the Quran, that Allah has created you equal in terms of your value, your worth to Allah. So your worship is no less than mine or his or anybody else's. Your deeds are no less valuable. However, there are certain differences that we have. So, for example, there are certain biological differences that we have. So Allah allows certain concessions for women at certain times. So, for example, during menstruation, she doesn't have to pray. She doesn't have to fast. She doesn't have to do many things. Her husband can't approach her. Allah gives her that right. You understand?
I understand what you're saying.
To protect her and to facilitate her needs adequately. Similarly, Allah has made that the man, not always, but generally speaking, physically stronger. So activities like road building or digging trenches and stuff, yes, I've seen the odd woman do it. I'm not saying no women can do that. However, most people that will do that type of work, very heavy, tedious, exhaustive labour work, it will be men. Now, would you then say to the employer, no, that's not showing equality. You've got to get the quota up to 50-50.
This is not the point that I'm making.
No, the point here is this. You admitted yourself that it's not about gender.
I know, I agree.
It's about the needs of the individual being satisfied adequately.
So why, as a man, do I need to take the responsibility of my family?
Because Allah has given you certain traits. Like, for example, your wife may become pregnant.
Okay.
So it may be difficult for her now to go out and do a full day's work.
It depends what her work is, sure.
Well, no, not necessarily, because pregnancy can often have many complications, right? She can become anemic. He's a doctor, so I'm sure he can run through a whole series of things.
Sure.
That can happen. Now,
but also, Allah has made me live less longer on average than my wife, so I can provide for my family for a shorter period of time. There is a real difference there between men and women in terms of length of time.
To be honest, we've got to be sensible.
Yeah, I agree.
No, we've got to be sensible. And when we're sensible, we've got to see things as they are, not how we would like them to be. Now we know that a woman during certain times, pregnancy, for example, she's not able to do the same things that a man might be able to do.
Right.
So a man's duty is not only to work and provide, the food and sustenance for his family, but if she says, you know what, I'm really tired, I don't want to cook today, I'm pregnant, you cook. But again, you provide the food. He has to do that. He has to look after her needs.
I'm saying this is
right. That's the reality.
Yeah.
So now,
that doesn't explain why a man has to the whole time have responsibility.
But does a man then say, "Hold on a second, darling, right? I believe in equality. Get up and cook that food for me. I'm hungry. I was working all day."
We don't disagree.
Right. So as the needs change,
the
necessity in how they are dealt with also changes. Now, the brother made a very important point there, and I think it's sound. And the reason why I think it's sound is because you couldn't counter it. Your only argument is that you feel that it should be equal in terms of how they should both be given the money, right? But you could not contradict anything that he said in terms of the fact that there is a specific difference of needs and responsibilities, and that is why Allah has allocated it in the manner that He's allocated it. The other important thing that we miss here, even though the man gets a double share of the inheritance, his wife can take from that inheritance that he's received from his side pretty much as she wants for her house, her kids and what have you. So inevitably, So
she's always in the receiving
no,
end.
so
the man is always in the providing end.
No, but you see, Islam has given that responsibility to the man, and said that the best of you, the Prophet peace be upon him said, is the one who shows kindness to his wife. Treats her with best to your wife. So how are you best? You're best by being the most kindest, the most romantic, the most forgiving.
By allowing her to live the life that she wants to live. Equally. By allowing her to live the life that she wants to live. Now, let's say she wants to be the breadwinner. She wants to. Let's say
that's a decision.
I can't.
That's a decision for both of them to decide. Right?
So,
however,
there's a necessity.
However,
your arguments have primarily been about menstruation and pregnancy.
No, well, look,
menstruation
those are only
occurs for
two.
a short period in 1 month. Pregnancy occurs maybe a few times in a lifetime.
Well, there are
this
many.
is not the basis for saying that all the time.
Brother, there are many medical conditions. I'm sure that the doctor here can even explain about menstruation in terms of. And
I'm sure the doctor could give many medical
physicality, for the physicality, the emotional basis, and other things. Not necessarily with everyone, but with some. Now, however, what Islam has done, and when we look at the practical side of it, who is actually ending up with that money? It's not the man. It is the woman. Whether it's his wife or his sister, but it's the woman, and at the end of the day, who will end up with the money. And in fact, most Muslim homes you go to, the banker is the woman. She decides. Is that true or not? Right? She knows how much wages you got coming in, and she tells you what you've got to spend that month. And the rest of it, she allocates. Now, equality would derive and dictate that he should say to his wife, "Hold on a second, I'm the breadwinner, I'm earning all this money. I'm gonna make equal decisions to you."
That's not correct.
I'm saying the practicality of how we live
the practicality
as a society.
Is a man and a woman, when they're married, they are equal partners in that marriage.
The woman basically is the boss most of the time. Regardless, all these macho men you see here flexing their muscles, when they go home, wife says, "Look, you're going to do this. We're going there at this time. Make sure you're up. Make sure you're ready."
What's happened when you have 4 wives?
You want to have 4 wives?
When you have 4 wives, what's happened? Who is the boss?
Well, 4 of them. 4 of them. You got to be able to handle it.
4
you can handle 4?
Can you?
No, I can't handle 4.
If you remove,
no way.
If
I can't handle one, bruv. I thought
you
you'd
make
kill me.
a man and a woman equal partners in a marriage, then they can
stronger
make these
before.
decisions.
You've got to be a bit stronger. I'm not
That's
that
why the man say, you're wrong, I overrule.
Still demand the same things from us.
Misunderstanding is this.
fair?
In Islam,
It's not fair, but at least it was a solution and it's still a solution. The Germans did use this solution in the Second War, when there were a lot of German men died. People used to marry 2 and 3 and 4 German women. Go on search. Because there was a solution. It's better now, in the Western society, you are married to 1, but you've got 10 mistresses, and it's fine. It's okay.
God knows
But
more than us.
before,
You believe?
And in fact, we know from history as well.
How easy you fix them.
It's demonstrated. The laws that God provides is the best solution for the society. I'll give you an example. Okay? Here's the medic, and we have an understanding of now. If you have a leak within a pipe, the water is dripping from the pipe. Now we can come up with so many solutions. In fact, you will find a lot of people coming out with different solutions. Let's say the gentleman comes along with a solution. So what? He brings a box and puts it underneath the leak water. The water drops to it and it fills it in, changes the water. That's one solution. You come along and say, I'm going to put solid over it. Rub it a few times, but after a few hours, it's leaking. So you put more tape on it and then you hold it for a few moments, a few hours something. He comes along and says, I'm going to do something different. He cuts off 2 sides, the leak part, and wills a proper pipe, completely wills it, and it works. Now, which is the best solution?
Clearly the one that has the longer lasting impact.
Right. So solutions in Islam, we say, and we challenge actually, this is for a discussion. The solutions that Islam provides for man's problems and daily affairs and interactions they have, bring us on the table a better solution. A better. The example of, for example, the wife beating that you talked about, the West is so much hysterical about it. If you look at it, if say we're in a marital, we're in marriage and we have a marital discord because my wife did something. What is the first thing man tries to do? The first thing, when he notices, okay, what? The wife sold his Lamborghini, right? Or sold his house. Yeah, right. Now, what would the man do? So, okay,
I can't believe you've done that. Exactly. Why have you done
the
that?
natural response when someone something is dear to you is you become angry, emotional. From your anger and emotional, you want to say something to her. You actually say, oh, how did you do that? Some people actually physically commit violence.
Yeah, it's terrible.
Awful, isn't it? Right. No. I'm telling you, I'm giving you what Quran gives you the solution. Right.
If it was a
Let's understand.
I'm just joking.
Let's understand.
That's a joke. That's a joke.
Let's understand this. Let's understand. The first reaction.
Ferrari's all right, but Lamborghini, come on. But sir, I won't even think about that.
Rather than saying she's being unfaithful, you could have many examples because the Arabic word in the shoes has different connotations. So the natural reaction is someone's going to get angry and he's going to do something bad, right? That's the natural response. Now, what does okay, fine. Now,
Some harsh words.
so look at what Islam provides. The solution to this. The first solution is what? You go and butter or beat her or something. The first solution Islam gives you is admonish her, advice, reason with her. So what it means is you cool down. The first solution is control your anger. You cool down. That's not the way to do it. You discuss with her, reason with her. What's happening? Why have you done it? Look. Immediately you realize this.
Well, the problem was that when we were talking about this, you said it was sexual immorality. This is the solution.
He was giving you a
sexual immorality. This is property. This is something.
It's not property, isn't it? Property.
Okay, sexual immorality. Let's see the same example. Sexual immorality. She's been unfaithful or whatever.
Okay. So you're angry.
So man naturally is.
And I have to calm down. Fine. I'm really angry because my wife is obsessed with her life, and I calm down. Okay, good so far. Go. What's the next?
No, do you agree this is a better solution? Do you agree this is a better solution than being angry and committing violence?
Of course.
Domestic violence happens. Right. So domestic violence. Okay. Now look at what we've learned in Western civilized world. Domestic violence. Domestic violence is not coming from Muslim families. It's coming from non-Muslim families. It's statistics.
What statistics are you citing?
United Kingdom statistics. UK.
What specific statistics?
Domestic violence.
From whom?
From the spouses, partners.
So people have come forward and said, do you think that the victim of domestic violence would want to come forward and talk about it?
With the limitations
Can you
of
understand how
the
those
power.
statistics there might be some problems
Here's
with
my
those
disclaimer.
statistics?
With the limitations of how the statistics that we
I would
report.
argue that there are some big limitations with those statistics, and
There
they should
is.
be treated with immense caution.
Are we going to disregard all of it
You
then?
probably wouldn't be arguing
Just
that
because
if it was the other way around.
I absolutely
Just
would.
because of
Trust me, people
friend,
don't.
just
When it
because
suits
of
them,
our
it's a difficult
limitations of our statistics,
boy.
are we going to disregard altogether?
No, I'm not saying disregard statistics. I'm just saying they should be treated with immense
Cautions.
caution.
Exactly.
And
Right.
the caution is proportional to how those
Fine.
statistics were
What we
collected.
find
I've
is-
given you an
what
example
we
of how I
find-
can imagine those statistics could be skewed.
What we find
When the domestic violence is most extreme,
could be.
that might be
Could
the
be.
circumstance
But
in which
what
the woman
we've
doesn't
got
want
so far with our best statistician coming in and telling us what?
to. Might be nonsense.
Right, let me ask you a question about that then.
Okay?
Do you think that non-Muslim organisations generally would like to lessen the effects of domestic violence within the Muslim community, or would they want to exaggerate those? According to the norms of our media and the way that it works at the moment, would you think it would work that way in favour of, or would it work detrimental to?
Well, it depends entirely on who's collecting the statistics.
No.
Can I
I've
tell
said
you,
non-Muslim.
as
Non-Muslim
does
organisations.
that mean a secular or a Christian or a Jewish or what?
I'm saying
There is a difference.
let's say secular.
Secular. Now, a secular organisation. We're talking about science here. We're talking about the science.
We're talking about how things are working in our society today.
We're talking about.
Does the media, do these statistics that come out, are they unfairly in favour of Muslims,
Let me
or
say
do
this.
are they in fact highly critical of Muslims whenever they can be?
I don't know the answer to that question, but let me say this. If there was some statistical organisation that provided statistics which were misleading against Muslims, that would be wrong. Completely wrong. I couldn't agree.
Did you read the story? This is irrelevant, but because you mentioned it, the story of the Muslim cab driver that didn't allow the dog in the car, or something like that. Why did it have to be a Muslim cab driver? You know, just do you
Why
realise?
would it have to be?
Fine. So,
The fact that he's a Muslim is
the
irrelevant
point
to the
the brother was making, the media,
I hate our media
unfortunately,
more than he should.
The Daily Mail printed a story.
I work for the media too.
Daily Mail printed a
I've
story.
worked long enough to understand what media works.
I don't like to see that.
You may not. I've worked for the media.
I know, I'm sure.
Right? I was a news editor for quite some time. So we know what sell. Media people know what sell. It's all about money. It's not about fairness and justice and equal
I
treatment.
agree with you.
Right. Good. So let's come back now. In terms of this, solution. So Islam gives you in a mindful discourse, like faithfulness of Christians. First thing is you control your anger and you actually reason with your honest and advise so that she stops. What would you expect from a decent wife? She should listen to you and stop.
I would expect from a faithful partner, irrelevant of gender, that they would respect the mutual.
It's happened.
If a relationship,
Crime has been committed already. So what
relationship
next?
starts on the basis that they were mutual partners, then I would expect that each person respects the other person. Okay? Regardless of whether it's a man or a woman, a Muslim or a Jew or a Christian.
Let's take this on. So between
So
the
we're in a
Christian
secular marriage here.
Now, I'm talking about the Islamic model and your secular model. Okay, let's do the
Well,
comparison.
no, secular perfect model.
Okay.
I never,
Because that's
That's okay. A particular model.
Because
We're talking about
in the actual secular model, that doesn't happen. But you're saying we should.
I'm not saying the secular model is better. No, I'm not providing an
We want to compare this secular model better than what we start with.
It's not necessary.
It is necessary. It is necessary. The moment one, I'll tell you why it's necessary. The moment one questions the integrity of the Islamic model and says, oh, I don't agree with that, no, I have a different opinion, it means they think they have a better solution.
Maybe I do, but who says my solution? That means we're wrong.
Okay, so no, let's compare.
There is such a thing as
So let's compare the solutions out there and see which is the best. So in Islamic solutions, in a problem like this, the woman was unfaithful, the man is now advising her, punishing her, saying stop doing that. What would we expect from a Muslim wife? Because we're talking about the Muslim context.
I'm not a Muslim.
We created
I thought you were spoiling the camera, the recording. A wife
shampoo and
In an Islamic okay, let me tell you then, I can comment. Because Islam says to the Muslim man and to the Muslim woman that they should believe in Allah
They know they're wrong.
and they should be faithful to each other and respect each other and the marital bond they're in. Yes, and the marital bond they're in. So the verse starts like this: in the husband's absence, the wife should guard what Allah commands her to guard. Right? So that means she needs to be a devout. In fact, shall we read it? Where's the Quran? Then it will become clear. There you go.
This better become clear.
So far, what is not clear?
Don't stop. Please, we've yet to reach our disagreement. Our most fundamental disagreement.
So you start by saying this. This is Surah chapter number 4, Surah Nisa, ayah or verse 34.
Can you translate it for? Oh, it's in English. Okay, cool. So,
Men are in charge of women.
stop right there. Already we found a point of disagreement. Men are in charge of women.
We're not talking about disagreement. We're talking
Well,
about.
I disagree with that. That's not.
I'm not asking you to disagree. I'm going to give you what Islamic model is.
I know, but
Within the
I'm already
Islamic
saying
model,
I found a point of disagreement with you. I don't think that men are in charge of women.
that's your opinion, right? You're entitled to your opinion. I don't have a problem with that. So let me continue
Men are
with.
no more in charge of women than women are in charge of men. And we're not talking about some weird equality.
You
thing
misunderstand me. You have an opinion. You have the perfect entitlement to that opinion. I'm not quarreling with you. That's your opinion. But this is Muslims believing this. We've surrendered to God.
here. You're entitled to your opinion as well.
Good. So let me continue then.
We can still disagree. I'm just.
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
So, because at the end of the day, we wanted to make sure what's the best solution. So men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given one over the other and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. So now we have a qualification why men are in charge of women.
Because God has dictated that that's the case.
2 reasons.
God has given 2 reasons.
Two
Go on,
reasons.
give me the 2 reasons again. Sorry. By right of what God has given.
Over the other, yeah, and what they spend from their wealth.
Okay.
Okay? So reasons are different. Now, so a righteous woman, a Muslim wife, are devotedly obedient, guarding in the husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. But those wives from whom you fear, and it continues. So it tells you, as a Muslim, devout Muslim woman, you should have faith in Allah, faith in His revelation and His rules and guidance, and you should also guard what Allah commands you to guard. So the natural thing that woman...
He's already heard all that.
Excuse me.
If you straight to it, he doesn't believe what you're saying.
Please allow
I
him.
told you that.
I agree with you. Please
Of the Quran.
allow him to continue. Allow him to continue, please. Please go on.
So what? It's just cracked.
So now we have...
Somewhat
We'll discuss this in a second. Please allow him to continue. Please go on.
So as a devoutly obedient woman in Islam, she's obedient to God, and she should also be obedient to what God's command is. So she should guard what God commands her to guard. One of the things that's got obvious what for God is her chastity. She should guard her chastity.
Okay.
It's quite obvious, isn't it?
What, so-
in the husband's absence.
So
Because
don't be
when the
having
husband is
sex with
away,
other men.
what should you guard? As a wife, you should not, let other men.
It's common sense. So I don't think it's required for it to be written down for me to realise that.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. In the West, it's common sense, but does it really happen?
Does it really happen in the Muslim world?
No. You said it's common sense. Yet common sense doesn't work to people. Because the people know it's common sense to be obedient to each other, or not obedient, faithful to each other, but they're not. So it needs to be written down. What the Quran does, my friend, what we are stipulating is this. God makes it easier. In fact, God says, even any transaction that you do, even though it's very little, write it down. Because to prevent the thing that might happen afterwards. Because people say, oh, I didn't do that. We never had an agreement or a contract. So in Islam,
Not a
yes.
bad idea. Okay, go on.
I think look, ultimately the question here is this.
I think we have a fundamental difference of opinion.
Yeah, okay. Now the thing is this.
That goes beyond
your yardstick to measure the validity of what he's saying is based upon your nurture, nature, your subjective reasoning, your logic, right? And what you feel is fair.
observation as well.
What you feel is fair. I'm not knocking that.
No, fine.
Now, either that scripture is from God Almighty, and therefore I would hope you would have to concede that if it could be proven that it was, then therefore the deficiency would not be in that statement there, but in your own heart and your own reasoning. So if it could be proven
That was God's word.
that was
then it would
God's
be me wrong
word,
rather than God.
then it cannot be wrong, because the God that creates the heavens and the earth created you and sustained you, and the knower of everything cannot be wrong, right? You understand my point? If.
I understand your point.
The caveat is a big if, right? So to pick out individual statements or issues that the Quran raises, your litmus test or your test to validate those things are based upon your own understanding and knowledge, right? Now, within Islam, even as Muslims, when we read the Quran, and there are certain things that we may find possibly a little bit difficult to fully absorb and comprehend and understand, but we don't see that as a deficiency within the Quran, because the ultimate initial validation has to be, is this the book of God Almighty or not?
So therein lies the difference.
If you can't prove without reasonable doubt that book is from God, then quite frankly, anything it says can hold no credence or no importance to you, because no, I'm just saying
It might still have some truth if it's
maybe,
not from God.
but you could deny the vast majority of it simply on the basis of, and what you have to appreciate is this.
I disagree.
Look,
on an important point.
what you have to appreciate is this. That those articles of decision making, of responsibility, or what have you. Now, 100 years ago, may not have sounded very odd in this country. You understand my point? So your grandfather, right, may not have looked at those things and actually thought that doesn't even go far enough. Now for him, that would have been quite moral, quite correct, and quite right. So what's changed? What has changed is that our moral code and the test for validity is down to our own understanding, comprehension, capability, intelligence, maybe science, right? I mean, that's not really science, because that's more to do with really a subjective reasoning in terms of what you feel is fair and unfair, right? Now, that's not really scientific in terms of analytical and empirical. It's a discussion that you could have, right? Now, so I think the most fundamental thing is, can you prove that the Quran could not have been created from man in the 7th century who was illiterate and herding goats? If you can do that, then I suggest, humbly, in a humble way, that I would certainly for myself accept everything that it said. Now, how do you facilitate that direction of thinking and investigation to come to that conclusion?
May I respond?
Yes.
2 points. Firstly, on the validity of the book, if it were not from God. If we, just for the sake of argument, assume that this book is not divinely inspired.
Yes.
You said, well, I can perhaps, ignore a lot of what it says. Is that an accurate?
What I'm saying to you is that if you feel that is not from God Almighty,
I feel as though
then clearly things that would be deemed or seem somewhat plainly and openly deny them on the basis that you don't accept them. Right? However, that's the most important and the fundamental thing is this. If somebody comes to you with any information, before you even look at the information, validate the source is accurate. Because if the source is dubious or inaccurate, then you don't have to even accept what that person says, right? So if somebody says Mercedes are built in Germany, right? You might deny that on the basis, the premise that you don't know. But once you validate that the person actually is a guy who works at Mercedes in Germany, and he's got pictures. He's a trustable person, and he's got another few colleagues, and they've got pictures at the Mercedes plant and videos proving that they're making. So you've now validated the source. So now there's no doubt in the fact that this man probably does make Mercedes.
Can I get to my points?
Yes.
So, my points were, firstly, I disagreed that if you could prove somehow that this was not divine, that you could refute it. You could say, well, there's no reason for me to believe it. There's no reason for you to believe it. Just assuming that that's the case, which I know you wouldn't agree with, obviously, but I'm saying that in that case, you would then read what it says, and you would use logic, and you would use reason and science even to decide what. So just because it's not divinely inspired doesn't mean any of it's wrong. It could.
That's what I was going to do.
It could all be correct.
But you've accepted,
and not divine.
But you've accepted. But you accepted that sort of reasoning is subjective to nature, nurture, and where you're born, and
it depends on the nature of the claim,
and what era you're born in, right?
I think it depends on the nature of the claim.
So it's not an absolute way of distinguishing right from wrong, is it? It's purely what I feel through my knowledge, through my understanding.
We're getting very philosophical here, but I mean,
so I agree that this is the way forward in a discussion like this. When if you don't believe in God in the first place, the first thing that needs to be clarified is whether God exists or not, and then everything will follow.
I agree, actually.
But I came from a different angle, saying, take that as it is. It gives you a particular solution. Whether it comes from God, you believe it or not, right? We believe it comes from God, and we believe this is the best solution. So we can actually analyze this and compare with any different models, and that's what I was trying to do. Okay. So the first solution I said is it tells you that it gives you the roles and responsibilities of man and woman. Women should be obedient to God. So as a Muslim woman, when she's done a mistake, let's call that a mistake, right? Because in a marital life, when you're married and you've been unfaithful to your husband, you've committed a mistake, whatever you call it.
Or if the husband's unfaithful to his wife.
No, we're not talking about the other problem yet. We're talking about
but I see
this.
The same. They're two sides of the same coin.
You have to be fair. This particular verse here talks about the unfaithfulness of the wife. Okay. There are other verses elsewhere talks about unfaithfulness of the husband. Right. So let's take one for its own merit. What the solutions are. So,
but I disagree with your premises. So it says there.
No, you can disagree, but let's understand within the Islamic framework whether, when it's applied like that in a believer, does that say it should be applied on you and a non-Muslim?
If you were a believer, no. So I am as a non-believer.
This is not for you.
Who does not believe in God.
This is not for you. This is for a Muslim man and a Muslim woman. So let's understand in that context.
Just because it's not for me doesn't mean I can't comment on whether it's valid or not.
But let's understand within the Muslim framework, Islamic framework, how this is the best solution. Right? And then we can compare.
It's the only solution in Islamic framework because this is the word of God, surely.
Let's understand that.
No, that's
Suppose it's the only solution.
If God wrote
can you get a better solution in an Islamic framework? We can compare that.
If you're a believing Muslim and you believe that the Quran is the inspired word of God, there can be no better solution than the inspired word of God. If that's what the inspired word of God says,
a Muslim can say, actually, the first thing is...
Your friend here was correct in that so for a Muslim, this is correct, okay? Because a Muslim believes in God.
I don't follow exactly what you say, because a Muslim, for example, can say, look, actually, what didn't God say, for example, first thing is you actually give her a big slap, right? Why did she do that? That could have been the first thing.
Would be wrong then, apparently, according to this, right?
You said this is the only solution and the best solution. No, there could be several other solutions.
But this,
right?
How do you mean?
This is one particular solution that Allah provides, which we think is the best solution. But there could have been so many other multitude of solutions. Let's understand that. There are possible other solutions. So out of all the solutions, Allah has given us this particular solution.
Okay.
So within this...
We must assume, therefore, that's the best one, because Allah has given it.
That's what I'm claiming. Okay. That's what I'm claiming from the very outset. So let me continue and finish this and see whether this is indeed the best or not, or whether we can get a better solution. So first thing is, the woman should be, obedient to God and be faithful, and she should not do what she shouldn't be doing in the first place. She's done that. So Allah says, don't get angry. It doesn't say that, but this is implied. Restrain yourself, control yourself, and do what? Advise her not to do that again. So what is now required from the Muslim woman? What do we expect as a Muslim husband and a Muslim within the Muslim framework? Like we're talking about this, she should now acknowledge that she's done something wrong, because she didn't do something wrong. That's why all the issue is. She did something wrong. So first thing is she must acknowledge she's done something wrong, and she must make the intention not to do that again, so resolve it. If she does that, she says, oh, sorry, my husband, my loving husband, I'm so sorry, I'm not going to do that again. Now, are we going to go to the next step? Beat her and so on? No. Why? Because these steps are sequential.
I understand.
Let's understand that. If now she's now come back to her senses and says, okay, what I've done is wrong, that's the end of the story. Back to normative marital life again. But if she persists on and does not listen to God, Allah, listen to His rules and regulations, and doesn't care about the family and the husband, and she keeps on doing this, the Quran gives you the second solution. Just like a doctor, when you go with a pain, in fact, by the way, I'm a pharmacist, he's a doctor. We know more about the medicines than perhaps any other specialties. So when we have a problem, pain, what do? The doctor diagnoses and says, okay, you know what? Have some paracetamol. You got some pain here, fine. If the paracetamol doesn't help, you come back again, he's not going to give you paracetamol again. He's going to give you
something else.
Something better or worse.
The next step.
The next step is what? Next thing is what? Stronger. Something, please don't record it. Something stronger.
Panadol extra.
I know, and I'm asking you, please don't.
Please, excuse me, please. Please, respect, please. Respect.
He doesn't want to be recorded.
Okay. What would he give? Something?
He can if he wants, but I just don't want
sorry,
to.
let's do that.
It's fair.
I know we can't control something. So, what is he going to give? Something stronger or weaker?
Well, he'll try something different at least. Yeah, look,
logically,
I understand your point. It's sequential. You try the first thing, if it doesn't work,
let's
try
not
the
jump.
second thing,
Let's not jump the gun. Let's
Let's
understand the solution. So he would give something stronger. Maybe he would give you some NSAIDs, right? Non-steroidal, which is stronger.
Fine.
Maybe if that didn't work, he's going to give you even stronger opioids.
Morphine, yeah.
Morphine,
Okay,
right?
Right.
Strong. What we have here is a similar prescription. So if she persists on doing that, the next step. Do you know what the next step is? Divorce?
No, stop having sex with.
Stop having this marital conjugal relationship, which is part of your marriage.
Okay.
So
and that doesn't work.
No. Don't just jump the gun. You don't really. If you're going to be analytical, you have to really sit down and think through this situation. In a marital discord, we have this problem, and the solutions are provided. What's really happening with the psyche of the woman, Muslim woman? If she's now realizing, look, the man is stopping this marital relationship, the mutual intimacy, because marriage is now in check. It's a problem. It's a serious issue. At this time, no one else knows. The children doesn't know. Your father, your mother, the neighbors, the Sun and the Daily Mail. They don't know either, because it's between yourself again. You're trying to protect the marriage.
Fine.
Right? So you would expect again from a person with good psyche, sound psyche, to do what? Stop and say, I'm sorry. If she returns, what do? Back to normal life again? Nothing happens.
Okay.
You're back to normal life. But if she doesn't do that, now I ask you a serious question, a scientific question. What does it tell you about her psyche?
It tells me that she doesn't want to be in that relationship.
She could just say so.
She doesn't want to be in
She could
the
just
same
say so
relationship
simply.
that I want to be in.
No, she could
Relationship
just
isn't working.
No. She could just simply say so. It doesn't work. I want divorce.
She might still love me, but she.
Sorry?
She might still love me.
She loves you, and she doesn't respect this faithfulness.
Obviously, she doesn't love me in the way that I wish to be loved.
No, not I wish. Mutual. Remember the mutual faithfulness.
We're not in. If my wife is cheating on me and just keeps on doing it, we're
What does it
clearly
tell
not
you?
in the same relationship that we want to be.
So what
I
is
want to
she
be in a
telling you?
relationship where she doesn't do that. She wants to be in a relationship where clearly she thinks
So
that's
what
okay.
would you do then? If that's
So I would say if there was a real difference of opinion, again we tried everything. Right. I would just leave her.
Right. The Quranic first injunction, the advice about reasoning, advising, and admonition doesn't stop. That would have been going on, and if you realize that, if you now mutually discuss and say, look, why are you doing this? And she says, because it doesn't work anymore between us. You should go and mutually seek divorce. Simple as that. Case closed. Solutions there. But if she doesn't do any of that, instead she carries on. She says, I'm going to still be married with you. She doesn't acknowledge that there is a serious problem in this. But but it tells you about the psyche. I mean, look. If you're not a psychologist, you don't have to be a psychologist to understand that. Something's terribly wrong with your psyche. In this relationship, in this vow that you had, the contract that you had between yourself, to mutually love each other, mutually care for each other, be faithful to each other, and then one party is actually breaking that every now and then, consistently, something's wrong with her.
Something's wrong.
Right. So she needs to be corrected. She needs to be...
And how should I go about it?
Right. So what does Islam say at that time is, the next step is, look, if it's continuing like this, as he explained earlier on, the third step is beat. And you think beat means beating the bush and batter her, make a black eye and something. No, the Prophet and the companions, they understood how this should be practiced. But what we understand from this in the context of this, the spirit of the text is, this is a signal. Signal to the point that you are coming to a stage where divorce is very near. Why? Because we tried all our best to stop the marriage coming to an end because of maybe the 12-year-old girl that we have, right? Of course, right. Yeah. So at least try to reconcile. Now, when I did that, to the trip, now she realized the next step. She should realize the next step is what? Divorce. So if she persists again, knowing, because this signal is serious signal. This is the last before we separate from each other. So if she has any love, any respect, any care for the family and the children, in Islam, by the way, just one point I need to mention, it's not between one man and one wife. In Islam, a marriage is between two families, whole families, right? We are, like that. So at that point, suppose she carries on or she wants to insist, what does Islam say? One last resort. Not divorce.
Hit her with a toothbrush.
No, we've done that already. She doesn't care. You go and ask what? You try to go and find an arbitrator. Now, it's no longer personal between you and your wife. Now it's gone to the wider. It doesn't have to be a lawyer.
No.
It says you go an arbitrator from your family and her family. Can I finish, please? Yeah, it's not going to take too long, right? Maybe 2-3 minutes. So you choose an arbitrator from the family. Now the family is involved. So they will try to reconcile this marriage.
In fact, it says one from her side and one from your side.
From each
so
side.
Fairness.
So you choose the arbitrator which you trust and which are wise and so on and so forth from each side. You don't just decide, oh, let me appoint him and he decides for us. No, arbitration done from the both sides in the view of what? To reconcile this marriage. If they failed, in fact, if they wish to reconcile, God says He will make them reconcile, and that will be the end of the story. But if they can't reconcile, divorce. Now, these are the steps in a marital discord. Now, you tell me, because you disagree with it, give me a better solution. In a marital discord, in a family who believes in God and believes in the words of God.
No, I happily concede that divorce would be the best option in that circumstance. If, in that very extensive circumstance.
Yeah. So why would the third prescription be any of a problem?
Because can you tell me that is very easy to interpret? Don't forget that this is originally written in Arabic, and most Muslims are not Arabs.
Our language is preserved, the understanding is preserved, the examples of the companions, what they did, is preserved.
I understand the nuances of what this beat means. This is the problem. Most of that I have no problem with. It's the phrase beat that I have.
Is it harsh? Is it harsh? Do you agree it's harsh?
But that word itself is not translated directly from Arabic anyway, is it?
If it's,
what do you mean then?
The word beat has a connotation of severe chastisement.
Okay.
First of all, there's about 19 different words in English for that Arabic word of beat.
Okay.
That's why some translators have said severely chastise. Some have said, some have admonish. They've used different words. Some translators have used the word beat. Now, how we understand the word beat is that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said, you cannot harm her, hurt her, bruise her, cause her pain. So clearly, that word, that word, the Prophet ﷺ explained that you can't bruise her, mark her, cause her discomfort, pain, or anything else. Now, hold on a second. So that is how Muslims understand it. That is why the statistic that he was referring to proves the fact that Muslims also understand it to be that, and that is why domestic violence is not how it is in the West explained, that is prevalent within Muslim marriages. In fact, it's not. One other very important fact to remember here is this. If your wife punches you, for example, and causes you a bit of pain, right? The Quran doesn't stop her from doing that. But it forbids you from doing that to her.
I would say that would be wrong too.
But what I'm trying to explain... But you see, look, there's a physical difference between a man and a woman, right? You even gently punch your wife, a woman, and it's going to cause her more pain, more bruising, and more discomfort than if she gives you a good solid whack. That's why you get all these That's why you get all these brutes, right, who'll say, go on, mate, go on, give me one there, punch me on my shoulder. And that's another man punching them, right? Full strength.
Look,
And he's acting all hard and strong because he can absorb that type of thing. Now, if a woman does that, and then she slaps her husband or she hits him or something, and it causes him a bit of pain, the Quran doesn't forbid her, actually. Maybe under laws of etiquette and manners and stuff, it may be regarded as that you shouldn't do that.
So let's hear him.
But the Quran forbids the man from doing that.
So in terms of now the solution provided, stepwise prescription to a problem, and there are several steps. One of the steps is this thing, beating, however you try to understand it. Let's say you understand beating means beating, right? Without any qualification.
Can you understand how that might be an easy solution to come to?
Do you
I
agree?
read that and it says beat. And I think,
do you agree it's harsh?
No, I can understand that.
Do you, exactly.
No, but brother, to be fair to him, he's saying, look, I've read that word beat.
let's say I convert it.
And from that, the connotations that I've got in my mind is that it means this. Now,
it means you actually
severe chastisement.
put it into a coma, right?
I'm really sorry. I actually have to leave. Listen,
No problem.
I'm not ducking the argument.
That's not a problem.
I'm being beckoned away.
You've been pulled away.
But anyway, think about it.
That's woman control. You see? You're talking about
She's
men.
gonna get admonished later.
Exactly. Where's the equality?
Where's the
now?
equality now? Who's in charge?
Why did you say?
Who's in charge?
Hold
Be
on.
the man in charge.
If I wanted to leave an hour ago, I would have done that.
Yeah. No.
You said you disagreed when Manny was in
She's
charge.
just given that finger like that. She's gone, come on, that's it. And he's just suddenly shaking hands.
I think you summed it all. Who's in charge? You summed it all.
Anyway, look,
I
it's
don't
nice
think
speaking to you.
that's fair.
But what I would say to you is, look, do take some literature with you.
Yes, she has.
Lovely. And the Maurice Bucaille one is very good because I think what it does do is it's a French scientist who wrote a book, the Bible, the Quran and Science, in French, then it was translated to English. He actually became Muslim at the end of it on the fact that he was convinced that this book could not have come from a human being and it came from God.
Can I ask you, is there a particular translation of the Quran into English that you would?
What's the best one that you would recommend?
Mrs. has one, your other half has one.
Is that the one?
That's the Sahih translation.
Hey, listen.
I would give you.
Matt,
Matt,
although I
let me
disagree
give
with
you-
you in many senses, it's been a pleasure to talk to you anyway.
We can agree to disagree.
Of course.
Can we just film you saying bye-bye or is that going to be a problem?
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Professor Abdul Halim, who is director of the School of Studies.